what do you think is the true value of college?
The true value of college is
The one piece of advice I would give myself is
Don't really view college as something people have to do, but because I knew I wanted to be a doctor, I knew I needed to go to college.
College didn't feel that different.
that was a huge transition for me. I had never had to do that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Manisha, the founder of Modulo, and this is the Modulo podcast. And I am thrilled to have with me today my favorite, most recurring podcast co-host, Jasmine, doing a special episode that was Jasmine's idea about getting into college as a homeschooler. And we have 4 incredible guests with us. We're going to ask them lots of questions, and I will let you kick it off, Jasmine.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine. Thank you all so much for joining us. A bit of background about me. I've been homeschooled since first grade, and I'm going off to college soon. So yeah, like Manisha said, I asked to have this podcast to get some insider tips from all of you. So maybe we can start it off with just a quick popcorn round of where are you from, how was your homeschooling structured, and what college did or do you attend?
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm from New York City, New York, of course. My homeschooling was a little bit scattered. I would go around the city to take classes at museums and other colleges and a lot of the institutions they had available to them. And I'm currently attending Oberlin.
my name's Jessica. I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I actually was homeschooled through a program called Classical Conversations. So it was a curriculum that really focused on the great books. We learned Latin, spent a lot of time in history and the humanities. And I also dual enrolled at some local colleges during my time in high school. And then I attended Calvin University and actually just graduated this past May with my degrees in biochemistry, neuroscience, and psychology.
Hi, I'm Sylvie. I was homeschooled all the way through until college. Similarly to Jessica, I had some dual enrollment for my high school years. One was Troy Community College, the other one was Bard College, where I got my degrees in biochemistry and Russian studies, and I'm currently a second-year medical student at SUNY Downstate in Brooklyn, New York.
Hi, I'm Henry, a lifelong homeschooler, K-12 from Madison, Wisconsin. Up and until probably like 6th grade, I was unschooled, and then 6th grade through high school, I did dual enrollment and co-op classes, and then I did my undergrad at Stanford, and then I stayed and I got my master's as well, and I just graduated.
Wow, it's so incredible that people have such a diversity of homeschool experiences, from really unstructured to highly structured.
Yeah, how do you guys think that your homeschooling experience affected the college you chose, if at all?
For me, it's kind of funny. I only applied to one college, which is where I went. I didn't want to move away from home until later on in my academic career. And because I had already taken classes there, helped kind of build my resume for applying. Like, I literally had recommendation letters from professors at the college. That's definitely one thing we worried about with homeschooling going to college, is they want you to prove your academic ability to work in a classroom setting. So having that ahead of time, including college classes, was really helpful. And that was just like the good college nearby my home.
Do you think that there are any like values or things that you prioritized in your homeschooling that also emphasize or influenced your experience?
Some things that attracted me to Bard College, which is a liberal arts college, is one, it's very small. You get to have more one-on-one relationship with your professors and office hours and stuff, which is something that's very helpful to me personally. Also, they have a lot of good music stuff, and there isn't this putting into boxes of people of you just do science, or you just do music, or you just do computing. It was normal to see someone bringing a violin with them into their chemistry class, and so I felt at home there, being able to participate in different areas. And I also was able to get a science scholarship, which helped because we didn't want to be dealing with a lot of debt for undergraduate education.
So it sounds like having a broad range of different things you can study all at once was really important.
Yeah, like I'm not going to be stuck in a library every day, all day, doing one thing. I don't know. Some people like that. For me, I wanted to branch out a little more.
I'm curious, maybe Sebastian. I think when I think about Oberlin, I do think of a little bit more of a progressive school. I mean, when you were looking at colleges, I'm curious if any of you kind of were looking for similar traits to what you'd had in your homeschooling experience in vetting schools. And did that play a role for you, Sebastian?
It certainly did. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to study going into college. I had so many different varieties of interests that finding like a liberal arts college was really, really important to me. So I applied to a lot of different of those same kinds of liberal arts colleges, with different specialties and different areas that I had interests in. Eventually, I was cutting down the list. It was difficult. It was hard to decide. I sort of ended up choosing Oberlin because it offered the most well-rounded options for all of those things, and it's a very well-regarded school. And I felt comfortable with, a lot of the people there had less than standard, I'd say, educational practices. Not everybody is from high school and graduated and immediately went into college. There's tons of people from lots of different backgrounds, and because my background is pretty unique, I felt right at home among them.
And also, Henry, I'm curious because you had a very interesting experience in getting into one of the most elite colleges in the world and getting rejected from some state schools. I mean, did that whole experience surprise you? I mean, did you choose Stanford for a reason, or were you just happy they let you in?
Yeah, that's a great point. When I applied to school, similar to Sebastian, I was still trying to also figure out what I wanted to study. And I think, coming from homeschooling, I could study whatever I wanted, right? And so I felt a lot of pressure going into college admissions. And so I was kind of casting a really wide net. And I'm glad that I did, because I also found that the admissions process was like all over the place, right? So I got accepted to some colleges that were really hard to get into, whereas I got rejected at other colleges that had almost 100% acceptance rates, right? And I think, it's in part, these colleges are kind of all over the place in how they think about or evaluate homeschoolers. And so I'm really glad that I cast a wide net, just because I was not, expecting or didn't realize that that would be the case when I went into college admissions. Another thing too is, Stanford was really helpful for me, because once I actually got accepted, they were really generous in their financial aid, and I was able to go back and forth with them as well. And having applied to a ton of different colleges, that also helped me, not just in the applications, but once I got accepted to different colleges, really being able to compare and understand what that looked like as well. And so that was something that, again, like, I didn't realize most of these things until I actually applied to college and, heard back from some. And then obviously there's the whole other side too, of like, once you're on campus too, what's the case there? And I'm sure we'll get into that. But I think casting a wide net to begin with really, really helped me.
And Jessica, what about you? Do you think that there is any particular attributes of homeschooling that influenced your college choice?
For sure. I loved the great books and I've always loved literature. And I really didn't want to lose that in college, even though I knew I wanted to pursue the sciences. And I didn't have phenomenal labs in my homeschool education just because we weren't equipped and didn't have, the fancy microscopes, all of that. So I chose my school because it was small and about 3,000 students, and they had incredible grants from the NIH. So I knew I'd be able to work under an NIH grant while also still being part of the honors program. They go through all of the great books, they go through all of the literature. They still had a classics major when I started there. So I actually started out with a classics major as well until they dropped it halfway through. But it was a way to really take this love for science and this love for humanities and combine them. And there were also so many opportunities for dance and music. I really thought about going to a tech school for a while and just pursuing like the straight hard sciences. But I knew that if I didn't have that aspect of the humanities as well, I would probably go crazy in college, especially coming from such a humanities focused background.
Makes sense. So it sounds like for multiple of you, having the intersection of a lot of different fields was really important with your college experience.
Yes. And I think also your experience, your backgrounds really illustrate the huge diversity of homeschooling. I mean, that it can look like much more structured environment where you're learning academics in a specific order to a really deep inquiry-based learning where you're following your interest and your curiosity. So Jasmine and I wanted to segue a little bit into talking about the pluses and minuses of being a homeschooler in college. Of course, I think it'll be quite different for each of you since you had such different homeschooling experiences. So I would be curious though, and maybe whoever has a really strong opinion about it, let's just start with the positive. What would you say, how did being a homeschooler help you in college?
So my style of homeschooling, which was taking a lot of different classes around the city at the time, it basically feels the same as going to college now, where I set my own schedule, I know where I need to go, I got transportation to get there, I know my professors very well, and I'm basically in charge of managing everything for myself. Having that as my normal schooling, as high schooling and middle schooling and everything before that, college didn't feel that different. The biggest adjustment was the change of scenery from the big city to a small rural Ohioan town. It was a really seamless transition, and I'm very grateful for like being able to manage everything on my own. I've developed a lot of good like self-study habits because of that, and I'm able to use those very well in college.
Yeah, best thing by far was the ability to research on my own.
Mm.
I was very used to having a topic, having an essay prompt, being able to just go find the primary sources, the primary literature, examine that, and just go from there. There wasn't a ton of aggressive oversight. So transitioning into college, having a professor who just gave the assignment and some background, it was really easy. And honestly, I preferred just taking that topic and going to the library and finding the information myself, which is something that I didn't realize was not a super normal skill to have starting college. Because there would be classes like my freshman writing class, like they would teach you how to like look for primary sources in a library, how to write essays well. And those are just things that came so naturally after just so many years of research and writing.
Wonderful. I'm curious to know some of the resources that your parents used or you used to learn how to do research as a homeschooler.
Yeah, it was the Institute for Excellence in Writing and then the Lost Tools of Writing. One of them was very creative writing based. The other one was just straight like factual, persuasive essays and research essays. And my mom also had us do science fairs each year. And I learned to do all of my research writing reports that way.